And we're good now.
All right, welcome to the challenge. This is week 3, if I remember and I'm doing my math right. We're going to be talking about some deep sleep today. I'm Dr. Dave, and for those of you that don't know me yet, I've been in the business for 30 years, and I'm an expert, not an influencer. So our goal here is to talk about all the different options, all the different things that go into our health in a non-sales pitchy way, in a non-committed to one thing way. We get to talk about everything because everything has a purpose, and there is no right or wrong in health and wellness. So that is the beauty of what we get to talk about today. And today we're going to go over 2 simple sleep routine things that statistically and research proven has been the most impactful thing that you can absolutely do for your sleep. The crazy thing is no one talks about it, and no one actually believes it because it's so simple. And that's the crazy stuff about this. So I'm just gonna bust this out right away, a little bit different style today, and just go right into the 2 things. And then I've got a great story, which is what we were talking about right before we started recording, is the 2 amazing, easy things. One, statistically, by far, the most research behind that this is successful is going to bed at the same time. Boo. Right.
Wow, so interesting.
Yeah, out of all of the things, out of all of the research that I've looked at, all of the experience that I've had in helping coach people around their sleep, I can honestly say it is the number one thing. And it's the biggest thing with it is the weekend aspect of it. A lot of people get into that habit the 5 days a week, and then their weekend destroys, the next 3 days worth of their sleep. And so having 7 days, if you are having sleep issues and you need to reset, it's 7 days a week of going to bed at the same time. Now, I will qualify that is not falling asleep at the same time. It is going to bed at the same time. It actually is indifferent about the time that you fall asleep and how fast you fall asleep. It is more important that if at 9 o'clock you start your bedtime routine, every day at 9 o'clock you start your bedtime routine. And that could be reading, that could be meditating, that could be breathing, that could just be laying and staring at the ceiling, whatever the thing is for you. The second biggest thing, the biggest impact, is eliminating the light sources in your room. So the big thing that people tend to miss out on are the little blinking lights on the back of their computers that they have laying all over their house or laying all over their room. So yeah, this is the fun part, is you get the old roll of duct tape out and you walk around to all your computers. If you have TVs, which I highly don't recommend having TVs into your room because it creates interesting habits, but you just take little squares of duct tape and you put them all over, like the Wi-Fi thing, the back of your computer, the back of your TV, because all of those tiny little LED lights, yeah, exactly, those little LED lights actually go through our lids, our eyelids, and so it can tell the brain and signal the brain to not get into the deep chemical state of sleep. This makes common sense when I describe what I'm about to describe, as when we naturally wake up, for human evolution, the sun starts to come up, right? And there's that light that comes through. The reason why we start to wake up is because our eyelids aren't this thick, light dampening thing. That stuff starts to slowly filter in through our eyelids for the purpose of turning our chemicals on in our brain to wake up. This is part of the morning wake up process, is slowly acclimating lights. So if you've got these little blinking lights around, or you don't have really good blinds and blackout blinds and things like that in your room, you are constantly telling your brain that it's daytime. So those are your 2 big things for this week. That I'm busting it out early today for you guys so that you
Mind blown,
right? It's the easiest thing to do and the hardest thing to do. It's really crazy. I'm reading the chats here. Oh yeah, some light stars.
It's very
interesting,
Dr. Dave, because where I'm staying at the moment, the television isn't actually in the living room, it's in the bedroom. Yep. Just because that's just happens to be where it is.
Yep.
But I think the people who I'm whose house I'm house sitting at the moment, they have very good habits where they don't necessarily watch TV before, right when they're going to bed. I think they have a whole routine. But me personally, like TV is my weakness.
Yeah.
So even last night, I started to watch this movie and I was there, and it was such a good movie. It had a terrible ending, but such a good movie, which is so annoying. But then I realized, like, if I ever fall asleep while watching a movie, I have a terrible sleep.
Yep.
Like I have a really bad sleep. My neck is all out of whack. But last night I thought, okay, well, I won't fall asleep, I'll just start the movie and then I'll stop it like halfway. But it was a really good movie, so I didn't stop it halfway. And then I realized, oh, it's 12:30 at night.
Yeah, that's one of the big dangers of the TV.
Yes.
And I will say, there's too many conversations around this. I love talking about this. What you put into your brain also affects the chemical storm of your brain. And so when we're watching TV, even if we're really good about turning it off like an hour before bed, we can still have that residual amplification of our chemistry, especially if we're getting into like horror.
Oh, I can't hear you anymore. Dr. Dave, your audio's cut out.
This is much better when we can hear you.
Can't hear you.
Oh my gosh, I'm missing all the nuggets of wisdom.
I got horror films, and then as soon as I heard horror films, I was like, no, not on.
Just for the record, if we have time, I'm interested in hearing about, it sounds like you get a lot of hours of sleep in general. So I'm interested in hearing about your relationship with sleep and all these things if we have time.
Yes, we will. We'll have a conversation after.
Hello, I'm back.
Hello. Okay, we got horror films, and then
yes, it's the perfect way to end, right? So even if we're excited, it's the chemical storm that happens. So if you're into something and you get very excited about it, like let's just say you're into travel and you're watching a travel show and you just really like, oh, that's stimulating of I really want to go to Europe and do this, right? Or I really want to go climb this mountain, right? You're leaving those chemical storms into your brain that are going to have a harder time unwinding. And this is where things like transitioning into music at night or journaling, those sorts of things have a much more chemical impact on your brain that's long lasting. The other quick thing that I'll say about TV is that if you're watching, I'm a believer in energetics. And what I mean by that is that if even in the middle of the day, you're sitting on your bed watching TV, that bed is the sacred place for your body, your energy, your brain to be going to sleep. And so it can be confusing to the brain of, am I getting into bed to watch TV or am I getting into bed to fall asleep? And so that's why I'm a big proponent of not having your TV in the room, that you have a separate place that you have as a sit down area, meditation area to watch TV kind of thing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on that.
Yeah, so it's just minor differences, but for the most part too, these are nitpicky things that we can.
But they make a huge difference, though.
Well, it depends on. So if we have a lot of the nitpicky things going wrong, it makes a big difference. If we only have one or two nitpicky things, it's less of an insult to the body, so to speak. So some people don't have nearly as big of a reaction to it as if they would if they had all the other bad habits on top of it, right? So if the TV, when it turns off, it still has a blinking light on top of it, and they're watching TV and falling asleep to the TV, right? All of these things are having an additive effect. But if it's only one or two, then it's not going to be that big. It's not the straw that breaks the camel's back kind of thing.
Dr. Dave, can I just share a little thing that came to mind?
Yes, share away.
I'm just thinking it's so interesting because when I first moved into this flat with my boyfriend Nick, he used to be a monk, and so he's very simple and minimalistic, and he didn't even have a bed. He just would sleep on the couch. And so when I first moved in with him, I would sleep on the couch with him, which I loved actually, because we'd be like, cuddling all night. And then I had a problem with my back, and I was like, okay, we should get a bed. And so we got this, our setup is in the bedroom that was supposed to be the bedroom, which is like a different thing now. Anyway, every night now there's I don't know, it's a bed stand and a mattress. There's like this big ceremony. We set it up in the living room actually. So it's like, but it's like it's he's getting he's like transforming the living room into the bedroom now. And like the ceremony of it all, okay, so no, and then the mattress, and now it's the bedroom. That's created, ceremony is the word that keeps coming out, a ceremony around like this big transition that even though it's kind of weird to like have your living room be your bed.
But now you know the science behind it. It's not weird.
I was gonna say, I just noticed that there's something really cool about keep on using the same word. Is there another word I can use?
No, use ceremony, because that's actually why ceremonies have been created. I'll get into that. Yeah.
And so even though again, it's kind of funny, with the setup we have, or it's unusual, let's say, there's something I can tell I really like about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the story.
Well, and that's exactly why. So what we forget about is that all of humankind, for as long as we've lived, up until the past 100 years, we had ceremonies behind everything. And the reason why is because back then we used to listen to our actual innate intelligence, and our innate intelligence would tell us that we need to get ready for sleep, or we need to get ready for the fall harvest coming, or we need to, like everything, the tea ceremony, the Japanese tea ceremony, what they didn't know back then was the science. Now we know the science, that what you're actually doing is creating a physiological change in your body to prepare your body for the thing you're about to do. It's the exact same thing as warming up for sports, right? Like you're literally getting primed to go to sleep. So by having that bedtime routine and saying, I am now putting this space into a sleeping thing, your brain is telling your chemicals to already shift. You're already lowering your blood pressure. You're already lowering your body temperature to get into bed. You're all of those sorts of things. So this is why ceremonies are so important. This is why habits and rituals and the belief in those habits and rituals are actually the powerful. This is where medicine has forgotten that the power of belief is the most important medicine. When we have a spiritual ritual and people from the outside look into it and they go, oh my gosh, sage statistically doesn't do anything, right? Like a sage clearing. They're forgetting that it's not the science behind the sage that you should be looking at. It's the science behind the power of belief and what is that person's chemical state doing. And so we have faith in the 90s, where we started looking at the people who prayed in I forgot what church and religion they were studying, but they could see an actual physiological change, and statistically different enough for people who prayed regularly and claimed that they had faith in this one thing, right? And so we know the science is there. That's the funny thing, it's just disbelief in the power of belief.
So interesting.
Yeah, so that's the importance of ceremony. Ceremony is extremely in high powered profile entrepreneurship. It's really sexy to say, what is your morning routine? What is your high performance routine? But what they really mean by routine is, what is your ceremony? What is that? And it's not the routine. I actually hate routines. I love ceremonies, because routines mean that you're inflexible. And the nature of following a routine and the nature of training into one thing, you become really good at that one thing. But if something goes wrong, you're really inflexible and you actually become fragile. So the whole goal, like I love the way Nassim Taleb says it, is you need to become anti-fragile. Anti-fragile requires ceremonies. Anti-fragile requires flexibility, metabolic flexibility, sleep flexibility. I should be able to go drop you into the Amazon and you should feel confident in your body that you can somehow survive there. Like, that is true health, is being thrown into extreme environments and being able to survive.
Thank you for saying that, like, you hate routines, you love ceremonies, because I really resonated with that, because I've tried to create routines.
Yep.
But I just kind of sit there and think, oh, well, what if like one day I don't want to do it this way? Then I've broken the routine. But sometimes it's also about like listening to our bodies as well. And, you know, if you feel like you need to change it up, say you do like yoga every single morning, but you feel like your body needs to rest, it kind of,
right,
having
you beat
the
yourself
mindset
up about the routine, and then
so
and then you start the whole negative loop again. And this is why like stopping drinking can be hard. Is people like say that it's the routine of, no, I'm never going to do this, and then they do it once and then they beat themselves up, and then it's well, I already did this, so I'm going to do this now. Right.
Yeah.
And so if we don't beat ourselves up, if we don't have these routines, so looping this back full circle, I was at South by Southwest this weekend, right? The whole point of today's challenge is to have a routine, if you want to call it, about trying to go to bed at the same time. But Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night, I had to hang out with investors at ungodly loud disco dance parties and having a few drinks, and it was just crazy insane and massive sleep disruption. My sleep metrics were like out of this world. Like, my heart rate was 20 to 30 beats higher throughout the whole night, like crazy intense, right? And then last night I was able to get back into my routine, and I actually bounced back even further, and I got into a deeper sleep than I normally do. But the whole point is just to be able to handle that a majority of the time we're going to bed at the same time. It's not every weekend that we're busting up our routine, but every once in a while we should be able to handle this. We should be able to survive, and we should be able to not feel like, oh, I'm gonna need to be over caffeinated all weekend because I stayed up late these 2-3 nights, right? So that's the beauty of when we start to have these ceremonies. We start to go to bed around the same time. We start to do these sorts of things. We try to do it a majority of the time in the long run. Now, for your challenge, the next 30 days, you better go to bed at the same time. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so it's a fun conversation to have, of just giving yourself permission to be able to have that flexibility.
What would you advise for someone like me? Because it works the other way around. I fall asleep if I have the TV turned on, like in 5 minutes. And if it's turned off, it takes me an hour to fall asleep. And it's really hard sometimes for me to fall asleep. But when I do, it's a very, very deep sleep. And I always sleep better with lights on, or I don't know, music on or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's really hard for me to fall asleep during the night.
Yeah. And so do you not sleep at night, but you sleep intermittently throughout periods? Like, do you basically kind of sleep for 2 hours at a time?
I usually fall asleep at 1, 2, 3 a.m. maybe, but then it's really hard for me to wake up in the morning. Yep. And then I tried waking up at 5 a.m. for a month, I think maybe 2, so I can go back to sleep earlier, but it didn't work. It was the same hour that I went to sleep, like 1, 2, 3 a.m. in the morning, so it didn't work.
Would you say your ideal sleep time would be maybe 2 or 3 in the morning until about 10 in the morning? Like, do you feel like you feel really good when you do that?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a beautiful conversation. Thank you. All right. Woo. So one of the things is I'm a genetics expert as well. And so there's actually a percentage of the population that is not talked about. And these things are called clock genes, and they help set our natural rhythm. And this is all fits into this beautiful conversation, is that a small percentage of the population is meant to not go to bed until 2 to 3 in the morning. And they do best until they sleep in until 10. And the people who figure this out about themselves Like, you want to talk about a massive landslide shift in your quality of life. You just have to reschedule, and you have to let your work know, and they have to be okay with that, and things of this nature. Is that you go to bed at, and it's still the same concept for you. You still try to go to bed around the same time, that 2 to 3 time slot. You give yourself permission to work or do any of the things that late, but then you just have to work on the back end and not falling into society's trap of being, ooh, we're going to be the lion at 5 a.m. All the successful people wake up early. No, that's all bullshit. It's
Oh my God.
sleep until 10, and you will find that rhythm, that clock gene. That's why they call it the clock gene. Literally is like, your window is here, well, the most of people is over here, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's really weird for me, and I always found myself as an outsider or something like that,
Yeah,
because of my
yep.
sleep.
And then that's where like the insomnias come from. This is where like low levels of narcolepsy, falling asleep with the TV on and all of those sorts of things. By the way, that's also a brain distraction technique. So if you're over ramped up and you're sleep deprived, your brain starts to numb out when you watch TV, and it allows you to fall asleep and not worry about all the other stuff. So this is it's the same as white noise for you. But if you start sleeping in your given time, all that stuff will probably go away. You'll have to probably do maybe 2 to 3 months to reset your clock of this before you start to really like get in vibe with it, because your body will need to heal. But a normal sleep rhythm is we start to have some deep sleep, and we fluctuate back and forth between deep sleep and light sleep. Then the later part of what we're doing is our REM sleep. So first half of our sleep stuff is deep and light, second half is REM, and this is where we're actually getting prepared for the next day. This REM sleep is super important for a lot of the functions that we have. So what you were doing is you're always hitting the deep sleep. You get in, you deep sleep hard because your body's healing the first part of it, but you were never getting your REM sleep, which then makes you want more deep sleep. And so you get into that vicious cycle of
exactly how it is. Yeah,
yep.
You're right.
Wow. And it creates anxiety, it creates depression, it creates all sorts of other things that come with lack of REM sleep.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Makes sense.
Dave, this is so exciting. I want to share a little story with you, and then I want to try to share it really, really, really quickly. But when I was an employee, the last time I was an employee was in 2016, 2017. And I've always struggled to wake up early, like to get to work. And I mean, I always make it, but it's like so painful to get up, and not even like ridiculous times, like get to work by 9, And so I decided to ask my boss if I could, instead of just always fighting that, if I could just go with it and see what happened and work whenever I wanted. So I was going into the office at the time. So she said yes. So I thought like, yeah, I mean, she's great. I thought that instead of, because my hours were 9 to 5, I thought that like, maybe my body would do like 10 to 6. What my body did, and my mentality was just, I'm just going to let it tell me what it wants. I would rock up to work often at noon. And what I would do is and just like when you said, like I was so happy this year that I did this. And it's one of the reasons why I then went into self-employment, because I was like,
yep.
I was so happy. What I would do in the morning, I would wake up naturally, and then I would like pitter patter around. I would like read the newspaper. I would drink coffee. I would go to like coffee shop. And then, I mean, I would crush it in the afternoon and in the early evening. And I was so happy. I cannot even tell you. I'm so thrilled to hear you say that.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it relieving? Like, why is this stuff not public?
Because they want everyone to fit into a small box.
Right.
I have a question from Nayeli. What do you think about noisy sleep machine? Does that help?
That's the white noise stuff. So I have to sleep with a fan, otherwise I get monkey brain. My brain starts racing around and I get lost in my thoughts. So yeah, I always have to have a loud fan on. even when I'm camping, I bring a battery operated fan, unless I know that it's going to be raining. The sound of rain just immediately puts me to sleep, which is beautiful. But yeah, I highly recommend it. And just again, of course, make sure that they don't have any blinking lights or anything like that on it.
Well, it's a funny thing with the rain, because I like the rain too when falling asleep. And also a strange thing, when I was living alone, I like to go to sleep with the sound of the washing machine.
Yeah. Yep.
It really helped me.
I'll
It
take a
felt
nap. Yeah. Speaking of naps, you and I were talking about naps before this. Is like if someone is vacuuming around me, I want to fall asleep. It's like one of those.
I love sleep machines, but my friend had one once and it was so loud that I like she was sleeping like literally she was dead to the world. She was sleeping like a rock and I'm sitting there tossing and turning because it was so loud for me. Like I love white noise, but it has to be very quiet. You know, it has to be just like a subtle thing in the background.
Yep. Everyone's going to be completely different with it.
Vanessa, I'm more than happy to touch on my sleep, but I don't know if Dr. Day wants to talk about anything else first.
No, this is purely real raw conversations. This is what this is all about.
Okay, well, I'm someone who like I get like a solid 9 hours. If I like even last night I set my alarm for 7:30 this morning just because I had a call. But I went to bed at 12:30, so I only got like 6 hours sleep and I can really feel it. So for me, I don't like to set an alarm in the morning, even though majority of my meetings are in the morning, so I've kind of put myself in a bad position. But
need to move east. That's the solution.
well,
there you go. Yeah.
April 10th, Vanessa. So like I have just learned like I am a solid 9 hour sleeper. Like if I wake up during the night, then it's not the best sleep because I haven't slept solid. And yeah, I can usually do like 8, possibly 7 hours, but if I get under 7, then I'm a right bitch. So yeah, you just don't want to come near me.
And that goes back to those clock genes as well. There's a couple of other types of genetic aspects that some people need that 8-9, and some people need that 6-7. You know, and they always, of course, like when you hear stats, we always have to keep the perspective in mind. When you hear something in the masses, it's for the masses. And it's because they're trying to predict like the bell curve, right? Everything is a bell curve. And so they're trying to pick that sleep number. 8 hours is optimal for the top of the peak of the bell curve, right? But there's all these other people like that have different things, but they only hear about, you're not doing yourself right unless you're getting 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah, definitely. It was very interesting when I used to fly, be a flight attendant in general, like domestically, but it was even more interesting when I went to international because we would do, our duties would be a minimum of 17 hours. And that's if everything went smoothly and there were no delays, which in Los Angeles with that airport, there was a lot of delays a lot of the time. But having such a long duty, we also had crew rest. So we had bunks where we could go and we could have a sleep, but usually you only have like 4 hours maybe that your rest is for. So by the time you actually get up there, you wind down, you get to sleep, I want to say you get like an hour or two if you actually sleep. And I would always try and schedule my rest on, especially on the way back to Australia, was the second shift, so that I would wake up, I would go straight into service, and then we would land, I'd be finished. Because if I did the first one, then I wouldn't get much sleep and I would be very testy.
Yeah, it's a beautiful example.
Yes. But yes, I like my lifestyle now where I have the flexibility of having like solid 9-hour sleeps, because I just feel rested. I feel energized the next day. Like today, I do not feel energized at all. I'm very comfortable in this chair. I don't want to go for a walk.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my sleep story.
Perfect. What is the effect of snoozing an alarm over and over? Haha,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, please tell
I
us.
have that habit too.
Me too.
Yep. So I'll even back up and say I'm a big believer that the sounds that we hear are going to change the chemical state in our brain as well. So there's a very, just like smell, it's a powerful sense that we have. And so when we have the buzzing alarm that scares the shit out of us to wake us up, is like actually a massive chemical influx into our brain where we actually get pissed off, and then we bounce back and we say no. We smack it, right? So I'm a big fan of trying to get the nice gentle alarm clocks. They actually now make really cool alarm clocks that both light and the sound take over the course of like 10 minutes to slowly ramp up a nice gentle sound, and then the light turns on real dim, and it's an actual like red morning light that slowly turns on, going into that eyelid thing again. So really just step one, get your alarm to being gentle. Give yourself permission that the other big problem is that because people don't have sleep ceremonies and things of that nature, they're exhausted, right? We're probably 80% of the population is sleep deprived. And so they're trying to wake up too early. They're trying to wake up against their natural body's rhythms. They're trying to also wake up in the middle of a natural sleep rhythm. So natural sleep rhythm is we go in and out of awakeness at night. They're called micro awakenings. And they start to happen more frequently when our body naturally is getting time to wake up. So the cool thing that on the digital health side and where the land where I am is we now have fitness trackers that start to track which sleep rhythm you're in. And if you're in a REM sleep or something like that, it's not going to wake you up. It'll only wake you up during the micro awakenings, which is really, really cool stuff. So, but that's where that turning off and snoozing comes from is, we're sleep deprived, we're waking up at the wrong time for our body, we're waking up at the wrong part of our sleep cycle. It's loud, it's annoying, and it's a culture of also waiting till the last minute to get up because of all of those things, right? So we've got a meeting at 8 o'clock, and let's just say we're self-employed or something like that. We'll wake up at 7:45 as like a last minute thing, and we hit snooze a few times because we don't want to, and we pop out of bed, throw our shirt on, and come on to Zoom, right? So all of those things play a part into hitting the snooze multiple times, but it is very much a sign that you are sleep deprived and that you need to actually focus on this type of stuff.
Dr. Dave, you just described my life about snooze, and then rolling out of bed.
Rolling out of bed, yep.
Yeah.
Throwing on your Zoom clothes and
I think like we can all agree, like in the Zoom meeting, we have done that more than once because we all work remotely.
Yep.
Exactly.
I do it all the time. Not the wake up sleeping late, but like I come from farm, I have a little hobby farm. So like right now I'm in my torn apart jeans that I do, like I was out at the compost bin this morning, right? I've got all these like dirty, holy jeans on or shorts on right now.
Yeah,
also
no,
dis-
go ahead.
described my life because this is what I do. But it's an interesting thing because in the summer, I don't even need the alarm because I wake up at 6, 7 on my own.
Yep.
It's mostly because I'm very sensitive to hot weather and I prefer to wake up earlier so I can feel a bit colder weather in the morning until the sun gets really hot. But in
Yep.
the summer, like from June to I think late September, I can easily wake up at 6, 7 and feel energized and without the alarm.
Yep.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, you're getting into flow. when we have healthy routines and well, I so used to saying the words routines on this episode, I would call them ceremonies. uh, when we're doing the stuff that's healthy for us during the day and we're doing the stuff that's healthy for us at night, what ends up happening is naturally you just tend to start falling asleep at the same time every day, and naturally you start waking up. When people are actually in flow around this stuff, there's only a 10-minute window that you'll actually start waking up in. That's how you know that you're spot on with your health, is that your wake up time becomes within 10 minutes every day. Of like, it's really weird because it is clockwork in our brains that all these chemicals shift around. We have all these rhythms of when our different hormones get produced and neurotransmitters get produced. So yeah, that's one of the indicators that I look at when I'm working with people, is just like, how consistently can you wake up without an alarm at the exact same time? It was an easy question.
Wow. And I was just going to say, with the alarm thing, that was actually what led me to doing this experiment and asking my boss, because I have this exercise that I always do around, like, with behavior change, where so for me it started with, okay, this behavior change, I want to change it, where I snooze. And so you like dialogue with the Vanessa, in my case, who's doing the snoozing, and asking her, what's going on for you? What's your positive intention? And she was like, I'm not getting it. She's like, I'm not getting enough sleep. Like, I want to sleep more.
Yep.
And so I tried going to bed earlier for a while, and it didn't really work. And so then I was like, well, why don't we just try? Like, it's so obvious. Like, I mean, it's obvious to me.
It's obvious looking back at it. Yes.
It's obvious looking back. Yeah. Well, she's like, I'm snoozing it because I need to sleep more. Sorry, I talk with the different parts of myself a lot. Okay. So I'm used to it. Anyway, so it's interesting. It was that behavior that then led me to this thing, asking if I could change, if I could start work whenever I wanted, which led to self-employment. Anyway, that snooze thing was really the catalyst for me to open that conversation up. And anyway, so that's cool.
I love the story of the friend coming and turning the alarm off.
Dr. Dave,
oh yeah, time zone change. Yeah, that was the natural
Thank
conversation after this, is like, in the field that I'm in, when you look at what happens to society during the daylight savings time change, which just happened this weekend on top of everything that I was going through, there is a and this is recorded for over 20 years now, there is something like a 24-25% increase in deaths from heart attacks and stroke and emergency room visits and ambulance calls. And like, it is insane the destructive force that this daylight savings has, because of people losing out on that last hour of sleep when the change forward and you lose that hour. And then on the opposite, when they gain the hour, the opposite happens. Like, there's a reduction in rate. Like, so there's this very strong correlation to this that no one seems to want to talk about, except for in my field. Like, we talk about it all the time, but like, let's keep doing daylight savings times for some apparent random reason. Time is all a fake construct. Let's just manipulate it to piss people off.
Wait, what is the story, Maddie?
Oh, yeah. Well, my friends and family are used to it because I have this very deep sleep, and when I sleep, I don't hear like anything. So they always joke, like, if I had a kid, I would roll over, or if the war is going to start, I wouldn't hear anything and probably wake up after it ends. So because of that, I had a couple of times, or maybe a few, where I forgot the key inside the door. I locked the door and I forgot the key inside. So they are knocking at my door, so I couldn't hear anything. And they were about to call the fire department because I wouldn't wake up. And my phone was next to my head, like ringing 15-20 times. And I wouldn't react. And that's why I'm afraid of sleeping in the afternoon, because I don't sleep like normal people for an hour. I wake up after 3 or 4 hours maybe. So that's why I never sleep in the afternoons. I'm scared of my sleep actually.
Yeah, so that's a great point. And this is where it loops back to that, giving yourself permission. There's so many things that human nature, like humans experience, that we feel bad about, we feel shameful about. And it's because if we're not part of that normal bell curve population. So I just want you to give yourself permission to really give this a try of sleeping later. And like I said, from the sounds of it, it'll be 2 to 3 months of trying to adjust to this and make that change. But have you used a fitness tracker before?
Yeah.
Okay. And did it give you anxiety around?
Not really. I mean,
Okay.
I got used to the way I sleep and I make fun of it, and it's something
Okay.
normal for me and for everyone around me.
Yeah.
But by the way, what do you think of there are some apps like Sleep Cycle or something like that that will track your sleep, and you can put there the time you want to wake up, and let's say you want to wake up at 7, the app will tell you to go to bed at, I don't know, maybe 10 p.m. So you wake up to your lighter sleep in the morning or something like that. What do
Yep.
you think of that?
I would have you stay away from those things.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
One,
Good.
because in this is the scary truth about all the back end of the digital health companies, for the most part, I should say. I obviously don't know all of them, but I know a vast majority of them. What they end up trying to do is to fit that bell curve, because from a business sense, they want to hit mass adoption, right? That's the only way they can survive as a business, is to create algorithms that are for the general public. And so the advice that they give, the even the metrics that they do, and like, let's just say Whoop or Garmin does it, right? Like that sleep score or your readiness score or your body battery that they all are starting to do. Those algorithms are created from general population data. And so just like a thyroid test, when you get your thyroid test back and there's that range that you have to fall in to be normal, well, you could normally be over here for your whole life, and now you're in the normal range, but that's actually not right for you. So this is the negative part of all generalized medicine right now, is that they're not specific to the individual. So for you, what I would recommend is do this month or two purely, like maybe just journal, stay away from technology around your sleep, because it sounds like you have you need to reset the mindset on how you're approaching sleep now. And once you get that mindset to start to change, of like, this is really working for me, then you can jump into something like a fitness tracker and actually start tracking it, and retrospectively be like, oh yeah, this is why this is working this way, and that kind of stuff. Bye, Jess.
I have to go, but I just put one more question in regards to time zone changes, just like between USA and like UK.
Oh yeah,
I'm gonna have to
there's
watch
no
the
good
recording,
solutions.
but
It sucks there's no good solutions. Yeah.
okay.
I've worked with people on this all the time, and you got to find those things that you can do to like knock your, so cold showers, there's like all sorts of habits and things that you can do to like knock your sleep cycle and try to redo it, but there's no
Okay.
good solutions because it just completely messes you up.
Okay, cool. Good to know.
Yep. Good to know. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Bye.
So does that make sense around, for you, Maddie, in specific, go all natural first, work on the mental mindset of things, discover your new sleep, discover your new body, discover your new health that way. And then you can start to play around with like, okay, now we can start to micro figure things out.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense because I used to wake up like early in the morning, 6, 7 a.m. because I had a 9 to 5 job until last year. And because of that, I was always tired. As I
Yeah.
told you, I'm used to go to sleep at 1, 2, 3 a.m. and I was always tired.
Yep.
And now I realize, so girls, we are only going to talk after 12, p.m. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
After I wake up.
And just like Vanessa was saying, is like, yeah, you're still waking up at 10, but you have to recognize that you still have to have your morning routines in the morning things and the morning relaxation things that yeah, you shouldn't be scheduling things until afternoon.
I was so happy that, I mean, it was the year before I went in self-employed, and it brought me so much joy. I cannot even tell you.
Yeah. One could even make the argument that because you started recovering your body, Vanessa, and it gave you the clarity to think about starting your own business.
I'll have to chew on that idea.
Yeah, right.
Mm.
Yeah, magical things start to happen when we give ourselves space, we allow ourselves to recover. What ends up happening, and this goes back to that mindset mastery from day one, the routines that we were doing. When we get constantly caught up in the busyness, it's this vicious negative spiral that our brains become more and more primal and less cognitive. And so we can't see the big vision. We don't think about ourselves and like our direction and our future. We don't think about like where we actually want to go as a person. We only think about like, oh, I've got to make these calls today and I got to respond to this email and I got to get this thing done. And oh my God, my kids are doing this and I've got to, oh yeah, I'm a charity person, so I got to go do this. And we just get caught up in this storm, and then the sleep gets even worse. And then the routines and the ceremonies and the things get worse. And yeah, so yeah, once we start that reverse cycle and we start to get that sleep, then suddenly it's like, oh, maybe who cares about this money thing? I can live a little bit more simply. And like for me, this is my epiphany that I did, is like I realized that I need nature in my life every single day. And so that's why I have a hobby farm. I let go of all of my possessions 5 years ago, and I realized that I was playing the wrong game for me. And it was because I crashed and burned and learned this the hard way. And I was forced to take a vacation, and I hadn't, and so that was when I started learning the importance of creating this visionary space for yourself.
Yeah, I gave away my belongings in August of 2018, and like same with the money thing too. I just started thinking, I'm just gonna live how I want and let the chips fall where they may when it comes to money. And so I did start making a lot less money, to the point where it's one of the reasons I became a nomad. I was like, oh, I don't know if I have enough money to run a flat. But then I just became a nomad. But then I was like the happiness like went off the charts. I was like, sleep however much I want. And also because also I don't have any domestic skills. So it's like, it's just better that I don't have a home anyway, because I don't know how to run homes. And yeah, anyway, I really identify with that.
Yeah. Yeah, when I crashed and burned, it was us as a family, because my wife was the office manager of our sports medicine. We had several clinics going and things of that nature. And we let all of that go, and we traveled in the country for a school bus for a year, right? We were able to live off of the whole year, the bus included, for $12,000. And it was like, that was a massive epiphany of like, we went from making hundreds of thousands of dollars to down to that. And it was just like, oh, there's this other side of life. Like, we didn't have running water, we didn't have electricity, we did everything by candlelight and like little battery packs. And like, it was this whole other way of life that really helped bring us balance. And of course we don't continue to live that way, but we found the balance that works for us off of that. Very powerful stuff when you give yourself space.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
I think Jess left a question here with the time zones. So she
Oh,
said,
that was the one where I said there's no hope.
okay.
Yeah. It's yeah, and of course there's hope. I don't mean it that way. I'm joking around, but you got to find the things that work for you to like knock yourself into a new rhythm. But it is so hard because our bodies are genetically and evolutionary produced to have the exact same rhythm happening chemically, hormonally, physiologically, at the same time frame. The reason why the sun turns red, our bodies have evolved that red light is the signature for our hormones and chemicals to change in our brain to tell us that it's bedtime, right? And so when we suddenly go to a different time zone, Like it's a completely different mixed signal. And so it's you're fighting, millennia of evolution and how our bodies are designed by changing time zones, which is only a new concept to the human body, right? We've only been flying for really less than 100 years at this point.
Just
Yeah.
out of curiosity, how do people sleep in the North Hemisphere where there's no sun for like a few months or something?
Yep. So
How
their
is it for
body,
them?
this is where the genetic stuff really comes into play. That's cool to talk about. So there's all sorts of different variances that starts to happen when you look culturally at people of where their heritage comes from. So Northern Europeans have a completely different set of genetic makeup towards sleep than South Africans, kind of thing. So yeah, they have the same adaptations. Northern Europeans, which is where I come from, I have this thing that I didn't recognize that was called second sleep. And so in my genetics, evolutionary, we were designed that we wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and typically stay up for a little while and then fall back asleep. Because back then it was just part of the culture of, there's all sorts of working theories, but essentially before that recognition, I had all sorts of anxiety. I'd wake up, I'd beat myself up, and then I'd get pissed off at myself and I start doing push-ups and like, why can't I fall back asleep? Maybe I just got too much energy here, and like all this crazy stuff, this mania stuff. And I'd end up staying up until like 4 or 5 in the morning, just like pissed off at myself, knowing that I'm supposed to be, good sleep habits is I need to get my 8 hours of sleep. And then when I started learning about all of this stuff, I gave myself permission at 2 o'clock. And that simple permission slip said, oh, yeah, I'm just going to roll up out of bed. I'm not going to turn any lights on, but this is some of my most productive times now. I hop on my computer. I wear like these types of glasses where I block all the blue light, where I journal most of the time. But this is like some of my most visionary time that I have, where I like make massive business decisions and things like that. And instead of staying up for hours, it's like 20 minutes, 40 minutes. And then I get tired again and I just roll back into bed and I fall right back asleep. And when I wake up at the same time, it's still as if I never lost a minute of sleep. I still feel just as refreshed.
Oh, I love this so much.
Yeah, and that's mostly Northern European descent people that do that.
I love like the I just put like permission slip. I love it's like in general, I love like instead of berating, being curious or listening, what is your body, what is it doing here? Just like my example, but what you're saying as well. So I love that part. And then I love the bit about, we're all different. And so, and of course, this is what we do remotely. In general, we're bucking culture for nature, like we don't actually like how the culture is telling us we're supposed to be. So we're going to do something else. And so like with Maddie too, I know it's her story, but I'm like so pumped now about her story because it's like, it's saying that you're not the problem. It's like, it's the culture that what we've been taught, that's the problem. So you need to come back to yourself. Basically, I love the journaling advice. I think that's probably, anyway, I'm just digging it all.
Yep, I got my it's just I set it on the ground right there. I always have a book, and so it's day by day. It's always like my visionary thoughts. It's how I put everything into one book, and I have a whole shelf full of the time frames, and it just helps me as a person who is a visionary entrepreneur. I have ideas upon ideas upon ideas, and if I don't write them down, then I ruminate on them, and I and it gives me anxiety that I'm not doing enough, and I have self-worth things behind it that negative loops that I get into, right? So I have this journal there that just helps me in the majority of the time in the middle of the night. I'll write those things down, or as I'm going through the day, that all that stuff goes into my journal, and then I can move on past it, which was a big upgrade from the sticky note situation that I used to have. It was like my wife always used to complain, like across my whole office, I think I had like 3 full pads of sticky notes, just like, oh, and then I've got this to do over here, and it's like outlined around the screen of your laptop, and it's got on your desk, and it's on the wall, and and that creates a whole separate anxiety standpoint as in itself. And when I switched over to the constant journal, it was like, this is how I started determining what is actually important in my life and what is not, what is actually needed to do to move forward in a big way versus just a whole bunch of to-do stuff.
Yeah, Dave, historically, before I started being a writer remotely, I was a personal productivity coach, and I'm laughing because the sticky notes is a real, like,
it's a real thing. Yeah,
you're not the only person, and it's the
worst invention in the world for anxious people is give them a pad of sticky notes and see what they do.
Yeah, and the most profitable at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Between that and Pet Rock, like if I would have invented sticky notes and Pet Rocks.
Yeah, I still have them, but on my laptop, on Mac, you can have like colorful sticky notes, and I still use them a lot.
Yep, I only use that stuff now for passwords, or like if I'm in like a 2-week session of doing a sales thing, I'll have all of the tools that I'll need right there for like my sales or whatever I'm doing for that time, so that I'm not going through documents, and that's how I use those now.
Yeah, it helps.
Cool. All right.
Oh.
Well, I think we should probably end. We're hitting our hour mark, and we're going to break the internet if we record longer than this, I heard. So
thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was really great. Sorry.
Yes, thank you. This is fun. I look forward to the rest of them coming soon.
Yeah, I learned so much. Thank you so much.
Me
and
too.
Even from everyone's story, Maddie, I loved hearing your story. Of course, it is me. And yeah, Jess too. And anyway, thank you so much.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Well, take care. Remember the 2 basics.
Yeah.
Remember the routines today. All right. Well, take care, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.